I recognized trauma as an issue, I think like a lot of other people have, through a lot of trial and error. I came out of my graduate training feeling like I was armed with all of the skills and competencies I needed to work effectively with children and families. I was steeped in theory. I was really good at relationship building. I knew how to engage in ethical practice. And then I started working in some of the most underserved and under-resourced communities in Philadelphia. And the interventions that I felt really confident in were failing. And I had great treatment plans, and they were falling flat.
And I first met Matt when he was about 10 years old, and I knew his therapist. And just through some inadvertent contact, I came to have a conversation with his therapist about this boy. I had not represented him or been involved in any other way. And I had had this brief conversation with the boy, and then later the therapist said, do you know anything about him? Did he share anything? I said, no, not at all. We just talked about lunch and having a hamburger. He said, well, Matt was removed from foster homes 3 times in his life. He had been abandoned by his mom when he was 6. He was in the hospital for some form of treatment, and she never came back to get him. So he goes into foster care. And over those several years, he got him placed in care and then got removed because of his behaviors. The way he got removed was just, in a way, normal, sadly normal. A social worker came to his school and said, Matt, you're not going home to that place today. You're going to another place. So he didn't get to even pack. He didn't get to say goodbye. He didn't get to prepare emotionally for the leaving. And then he has to meet this new family. And we do this all the time. We think that that sort of intervention, that move, is benign. We think, well, the child's just going to be fine. He'll be okay. We'll sit him in front of a TV. We'll give him a piece of pizza. And, by the morning, he'll be just fine. I lost track of Matt for a bunch of years and then got a call. I think he was 15. He was in high school as a freshman or a sophomore. But I got a call because he had been found setting fires in the bathroom of his high school. He became a fire setter. These are some of the most deeply disturbed kids. And still, he didn't look disturbed in any way, smiling, friendly. But I had to think that he was acting out of the trauma that he experienced, the loss that he experienced, that he had never gotten over the initial abandonment or all of those times that we, his protectors, had moved him around.
We were working in Strawberry Mansion. It was Saturday in June, handing out flyers for a community meeting that was coming up in the following weeks. And this was a community day. There was a cookout. And we left, and shortly after we left, there was a shooting. And it wasn't just a targeted shooting. They sprayed this block. They were trying to target somebody, but the bullets were everywhere. People hit the deck. Now, if that happened to you or I, we'd probably never go to that block again. 10 minutes later, the party was going on again because nobody was hit. And that's, there's a shell has developed and a normalization has developed around gun violence. And there's that's a normal reaction. If you see that on a regular basis to protect yourself, is you have to normalize it. You can't freak out every time. So seeing that was just a manifestation, it was an obvious example of trauma in the community, and community-wide trauma, not just a single person or a single family. So hearing that the sanctuary model was going to come to Strawberry Mansion, was going to work with the community and work with the residents, it was obvious the impact that could have.
I came to see trauma as an issue at my first job in behavioral health. It was a community, at that time, mental health center in Florida that was serving people coming out of state hospitals with serious and persistent mental illness and trying to help them avoid going back in because they were in the process of sizing down the state hospital. While I was there for 5 years, and during that time, I knew of, I think it was 4 or 5 very young people who completed suicide. And in fact, at least 2 of them had disclosed directly that they had suffered childhood abuse and trauma, and 2 others we had a feeling might have. So that was one aspect. And then there was a young man there. His name was Peter. He was in his mid-20s. And Peter would do things like call up the emergency center in the middle of the night saying, I'm in Lake Worth, which was a town, come and get me, or I'm gonna kill myself, take aspirins, or hit my arm with a hammer. And so he had these suicidal gestures that were not lethal. We had a family meeting with his parents, and what we discovered was that he was the youngest of 3 children by adoption, that his older siblings were married, had children, and seemed to be fine. That he, however, was adopted at about the age of 2. And what the parents were told was that he had been placed in and out of an orphanage pretty frequently from the time of his birth until he was 2 and adopted. And what we saw, we had no idea what to do. We saw that as gross neglect. We couldn't imagine what had happened to him as a child. He was difficult. He was difficult to connect with, but we were able to. And sometimes he would do stuff that was constructive and gratifying, and he didn't seem able to sustain it. He once said in a moment of regular conversation that he didn't understand why he couldn't do positive things more often or more regularly. He showed no signs of intellectual disability at all, but he did behave in a very immature way, a childlike way. So that was a very telling experience, and basically the combination of the 2 factors pushed me off the administrative track that I was on and onto a training track because I thought that would be a better way to make an impact.
I couldn't say it was an aha moment because I was thrust into it. And so usually when you have an aha moment, you think about something and you look for an answer, and there was no thinking about this. It just happened. And so in 1997, my only brother, Emir Green, was murdered, shot 7 times in the back. And through my journey of healing, I looked for something to help me be able to go on with my life. And knowing about trauma just made sense. It was something that helped me get back to normalcy. And when I learned about it, the more I talked about it, the better I felt. And so I just thought, the aha moment came when I was like, oh, well, then everybody needs to know about this. There's so much pain in the world, personal pain, pain that people don't know about because they're personal stories and people don't often share. And usually when you're in pain, you don't want to talk about it. It's painful to talk about it, as you can see. But I've learned the more you talk about it, the better it makes you feel and the easier it is to go on with your life. Doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean the memory of the person is gone. It just means you're able to live with it.